times so far? Excellent. Well, my name's Rod Hunt, and I'm an illustrator from London. And today I'm going to be talking about some of my working process, as well as things that I have learned throughout my 20-year-plus career. So who am I? Well, the internet always has an opinion about these things. And I mostly work in design and advertising, some publishing, in books, magazines, and I'm known for doing quite a lot of sort of detailed, isometric work. Some of the sometimes more restrained stuff, like for book covers. And I have a studio in London, in an old brick Victorian warehouse, which is part of a big artist community of over 450 studios. And there's all sorts of people there, from sculptors, designers, painters, fashion designers, photographers. I mean, it's a real mix, a real big community in London. And this is my space, which I have one large room all to myself. And my setup, which is I work on a iMac with Adobe Illustrator, and I draw on a Wacom Cintiq. And here are some of my studio friends. And in the beginning, I'm originally from the rural part of Dorset, a rural county of Dorset in the UK, which is a great environment to grow up in as a child. And I used to spend all my time drawing, and comics were the thing that really inspired me to start drawing. So I used to spend most of my time drawing in my free time. But the other thing I really enjoyed doing at the time, in my teenage years, was growing plants, believe it or not, particularly fuchsias. And I grew so many fuchsias, it became a business. So at 15, 16 years old, I was growing over 1,000 plants a year and selling them and showing them in agricultural shows. And I thought this was going to be my career, and I was studying biology and chemistry towards going to university to study horticulture or biochemistry. But I got to 17 and something changed. Something started niggling me. It's in the back of my mind saying, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I want to spend the rest of my life doing? So it came down to a battle between art and plants. And the conclusion I came to is, I really enjoyed growing plants. I was very good at it, but I was passionate about art. And if I was going to spend the rest of my life doing something, I damn well should be passionate about it. So art wins. So I go to art college. I do a one-year foundation course at the Bournemouth and Poole College of Art and Design. And then I go on from there to do a 3-year degree course in illustration at the Cambridge School of Art. And once I graduated from there, I moved to Nottingham, the land of Robin Hood, and spent 2 years there with some of my college friends, getting involved with the music scene. And I managed bands and promoted gigs and did record company showcases, trying to get my band signed. But they kept splitting up on me. And, it's hard work promoting bands. And my illustration career was starting to get my first commissions under my belt. So I decided I had to move to London after my last band split up on me. So I moved to London, and this was the start of where my career was going to really get going. So the first lesson I've really learned was, don't be afraid to change. I haven't always worked in the way I do today, digitally. I originally started off painting my work with fat hog's hair brushes and acrylic paints. And this was, believe it or not, this is me. This is my first ever published commission for a women's erotic magazine called For Women. And it was a terrible non-fiction story about the spirit of the Cerne Abbas giant, the famous chalk giant on a hillside in the county of Dorset, and how that spirit became flesh and seduced a woman, and they had sexy time on the phallus of the giant. Things could only get better after that. And indeed they did. So my next ever commission in 1995, which I had to wait about 6 months to get, was for the British political magazine New Statesman. And in fact, it was isometric. So now I was living in London. I was out there seeing clients on a regular basis every week, 2-3 days, mornings a week, seeing clients and doing like 120 meetings a year. So I started getting regular work, mostly magazines and newspapers. And as the few years went on, you develop your craft. Things got tighter with my work. And I did a varied, mostly sort of business and finance, and was mostly where most of my work came from, in magazines and newspapers. This was the Financial Times, who were one of my big maiden clients. I was doing stuff weekly for them for many years. But as the things went on, you're getting towards, the end of the century, I was starting to get frustrated. And I was poor. I mean, poverty is a great motivator, but it was really difficult to make a living and survive in London, which is a very expensive city to live in. So I felt something had to change. I had to change. But I wasn't sure how I was going to change. So what did I do next? No, I wasn't strutting the catwalk like Zoolander. This was 3D model-made illustrations. Now, when I went to art college, I almost decided to go and study sculpture instead of illustration. And this stayed with me, and then after I graduated, I did a few projects in clay and making these models, and I decided, what the hell, I'll put some of this in my portfolio. So in 1999, I put some of this in my portfolio just for the hell of it. So I went to see Gary Phillips, who was the creative director of the Observer newspaper in London at the time, and he was looking at the end of 1999, and he looked at my work. You could say he kind of liked it, it was all right, but then he came to the 3D model making stuff. And, he looked at this and said, well, this is really interesting. Can you make people who look like people? And I said, of course I can, having never made a person who looked like a person ever. So he said, give me a call after Christmas and we'll talk. So I gave him a call in January of 2000, and he said, make me Gordon Brown, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, for the budget issue of the Observer. So I made him Gordon Brown for the cover of the Observer newspaper. And, these were made out of clay and polystyrene and wire, and then painted up, and then obviously shot with photography. And then I made the environments out of card and paper and all sorts of things, and then they'd be painted. And then this started on me a whole new path. So while I was trying to work out how to reinvent my illustration work, I started doing this, and this was taking up about a third of my illustration work, I suppose. So these all progressed. I did these for years. I did more work for the Observer, other magazine covers, some fun projects, Dead Elvis, something for Christmas, Santa Bot. So, I started working in 3 dimensions, and it's very messy. My studio looked like a rubbish tip. Clay all over the floor, bits of wire, bits of cards, shavings. My studio was really messy because of this. I also made Ken Livingstone, who for the first London mayoral election, I made a whole section of tube train for when he was made mayor. So finally, I started to work out what I was going to do in my illustration work, which is going to go digital. And originally, I started in Photoshop, trying to do this new work. But I started trying to paint with Photoshop, like I was painting with brushes. And I thought, this isn't what I want to do. This is just doing what I do already. So I decided to use Adobe Illustrator instead, which is completely alien to painting, because it would force me to change. I would have no choice about changing. So once I bought my first iMac in 2000, I started working in Illustrator, and these were some early test pieces I did. And then I started getting, my clients changed over pretty quickly. I said, I've gone digital. Can I do my commission in Illustrator? And they said, send in a couple of examples, and they all said yes. So in very no time at all, I turned over to working digitally. And so I started getting different work. So I started working for women's magazines, and the men's lad mag. So this was for Maxim, for my first proper isometric piece that I'd done in the digital way. So this all started to refine my new way of working. So then this all going on, this already built up over time. Regular clients, like I was working for Diver magazine, they changed over to working with me in my new way. And then this was a very pivotal piece, which really set the tone for where I have gone today in my work, which was the book cover to Change the World 9 to 5, the environmental and social awareness book, which is very successful, and it's really sort of set the tone of where my work has gone since then. So, and to go with that, I think it's very important. You need to develop your craft, and I mean, if you know, you really have to put in the hours. And it's sort of true that I can't remember who said it now, but you have to do your 10,000 hours before you become an expert, and that's in many ways a lot of truth to that. That you have to really put in the hours, learn as you're going along, and the more you do, the better you get. So all my work starts with very detailed pencil line drawing, which means that the clients need to see what they're going to get, and for my own benefit, I need to have a very tight guide of what I'm going to draw when I take this into Illustrator. So this is the rough turns into the final piece. So I use the rough as a guide in a background layer in Adobe Illustrator, and then I draw with a Wacom Cintiq. So looking a bit more depth with one of my projects, I did a ad campaign with Saatchi & Saatchi to promote the Toyota Aygo, which is their sort of fun car for the younger audience. So once I've been briefed on the project, I start working in an A5 sketchbook with a ballpoint pen, and all these are very quick throwaway drawings. And I work with a ballpoint at this stage because it forces me to keep moving. I can't erase things in the drawing. And these are very quick, very throwaway, about composition, so no detail. And once I'm sort of happy with the rough composition, I do a full page version of that. Just, again, no detail. It's just all about the overall composition. And then from there, I move on and do a full pencil rough, which is very detailed, as you can see. And then I take that into a background layer in Adobe Illustrator, and then I use the Wacom Cintiq to draw over the top of, over that, using it as a guide. So that rough, eventually, after probably several weeks, becomes that. And here's a piece from one of my Top Gear Wear Stig books from beginning end, from the very first scamp, very thumbnail drawing to the end. So this is working on the pencil rough, and that builds up, and getting all the elements in and doing my working out, and then that's taken into Illustrator, and I start blocking out background elements, the broad general areas, and then I start getting into more background detail, start putting in larger items, and you see things move around, and I edit things. And then I start populating the world, and then getting into the final little details before you get to the final finished thing and published. Indulge your personal interests. That will set you apart from everybody else. It's very important not just to be looking what everybody else does in the world of design illustration at this time. And it's very easy to do that because you're bombarded by visual imagery these days. If you're on Instagram, you're on Behance, every day there's maybe new, amazing work coming up all the time. And you don't really want to be influenced by that. So I think you've got to bring yourself into your work, things that interest you. So you've got to be different. And two of my favorite subjects, So things that have also come into my work is like I'm a big fan of science fiction movies and the aesthetic that goes with those, especially the sort of the old B movies, like Forbidden Planet, and the 1930s Flash Gordon TV series, which is, it really stuck in my mind. Rockets made out of paper mache with fireworks sticking out the back and going across model sets. They really stuck in my mind in my youth. And things like Captain Nemo, the Nautilus, and things. So all those sort of things, and cartoons. Those have really, really been a big influence on me. As well as sort of older kitsch sort of illustration, retro illustration, and being a child of the 70s and 80s, all those movies of those periods as well. So Indiana Jones, Star Wars, of course, and more contemporary stuff as well, more contemporary pop culture media. Those are all really feed into my work. And then, sort of street art and music, all those sort of things as well really have a bearing on me. And robots, of course. I love robots. If somebody could pay me to draw robots every month, I'd be very happy. But some projects take a little bit more practical research. So, it's about problem solving, not a style. So superficially, you might look at my work and say, Rod's got a style. But that's surface. That's not really what the work is about. It's about problem solving. Every brief is a problem that needs a solution. So when somebody comes to me, I don't want them just to be there for, we love your style. It's like, we want your ideas. We want your solution to a problem we need solving. And a couple of years ago, I worked with Instinct BBDO in Moscow on a big ad campaign for IKEA. And they wanted to convince families that IKEA was for everybody. They found the most peculiar families and asked the youngest members to offer interesting stories about them. So this was going to be a book written by Grigory Oster, who is a very famous Russian children's author. And, we had to illustrate these strange and bizarre families based on these interviews with the children. So the final piece was this immense cityscape, cityscape of apartments, which is a huge amount of work. And every single piece of furniture in this was directly out of the IKEA catalogue. And they all had to be exact, because this is IKEA and you've got to get their product right. And so I drew hundreds upon hundreds of items from the IKEA catalogue. So this is probably about a 10-week, 12-week project from beginning to end. May have not been drawing the entire time with feedback coming from the client, but, it was an immense amount of work. And you see the sort of detail I went to, so like literally everything down to the patterns on the rugs, patterns on the bedclothes, cushions. I mean, everything had to be exact. And so all these different families, they all had their own personality. So there was the animal-loving zoo family who loved to live in green and with their animals, for instance. So the problem was how we're going to make these apartments and fit together to be this sort of fun picture. So the solution we discussed and came up with was to have this interlocking Tetris-type affair. So these were some very quick sort of how could this thing fit together in my sketchbook. And then from that, I started working out maybe how the apartments would look and how they, we haven't quite worked out all the details yet. Started sketching some of the families, but also there was a big photo shoot being done as part of the campaign as well. So I was also waiting for that to come through, which also had to feed into my work later on. And while we were doing this, I was also working on the book cover and trying to work out how to make the title of the book out of furniture and stuff as well. So this was the initial start of the main rough I did from this. So you can see, I've laid out sort of where the apartments are going to fit and then started working out the rest of them. It's not working. And then this was the first initial rough, which then obviously had to go off to the client for feedback. This is not working. So you can see this is where all the apartments fitted together. So one side, okay, it's not working. Sorry, there seems to be a technical problem with the clicker. So once I sent that off to the client, there was feedback, which I had to make some changes. And then there was the second rough, which I updated. And once that was signed off, then I started building up the main apartments. So again, I was doing these apartments as they go along, working things out. There'd be some feedback, and I then had to put in more changes as I went along. So looking a bit more closely at one of the families, the darkness-loving vampire family, they were real people. So there were, obviously the youngest member of the family was interviewed, and, they came up that they didn't like daylight. You know, they like to keep all the blinds drawn in the apartment, and they like to drink red drinks. So he kind of thought, maybe we're vampires. So that was the basis of the idea for how they would look. So they then, the client then sent me sort of mood boards and these sort of visualizations of how the aesthetic of each apartment might look. And these were also going to be the reference point for the photo shoot, which they were doing as well. And then they sent me the lists of furniture I needed to draw for each apartment, which then I had to draw exactly. I mean, that's just some of the pieces from that one apartment. And then finally, I started getting the photo shoot, which then I had to retrofit that into the way I was doing. So here's the area of the vampire family's home at the rough stage, and then the actual artwork, and just some of the level of the stupid detail that I had to draw for this. So then I also had to do that for all the other families. So there are 10 in total. So, you know, it's a lot of research. And then that became a book and a website with an interactive game, which you had to go in and unlock, find the items and unlock things. And then we did animated stings on Instagram. But here's a little film about the making of the campaign.
Everybody knows that IKEA is for everyone. But some families think that it's for everybody but not for them because they are special. We decided to convince them of the opposite. We started from the research to find the most interesting and unique families and stories about their life. In IKEA stores and on the website of the project, we asked the most creative and sincere representatives to share some interesting stories about their families. And they couldn't lie to the most favorite children writer, Grigori Oster, who became the leader of the campaign. After a couple of months, he chose the most unexpected and inspiring stories of families, wrote novels about them, and put them all together in a book called Kvartirovedenie. We invited the strangest families, transformed them into types of classification, and then they took part in a photo shoot for the book featuring themselves. For example, the family who likes to chill and relax at home got themselves an interior full of IKEA sofas, pillows, and carpets and became the Sofa Family. Lovers of darkness, with the help of thick curtains, IKEA dark furniture, and candles, transformed into the vampires. And so on, the creators, the zoos, the bakers, and the holidays. IKEA easily found a solution for every unique family and let the users rediscover hundreds of IKEA products. The famous illustrator, Rod Hunt, created an unbelievable detailed world of all families, which turned into the online game on the website, where users could go on quests based on stories from the book. And as a result, we got the first cross-media encyclopedia about different types of families and their habitat that inspires kids and their parents. The book was warmly welcomed by lots of websites, blogs, and users in social networks. And so, Kvartirovedenie proved that IKEA has unique solutions even for crazy and extraordinary families.
Develop client relationships. It's great getting new work from clients, but the best work is repeat work. And you know, you start building a client relationship and you don't know where it might lead to. So one of the things I'm probably best known for is working with the TV show Top Gear in the UK. You might have heard of it. And that relationship started in mid-2000s when I was working with them on Top Gear magazine, which doing editorial work for them. So they used me a few years, and then they didn't use me for about a year, and they sent some new work in, and then they gave me a call and said, hey, we'd love you to create an illustration of the Top Gear studio for the big book of Top Gear, which is a big fun book for Christmas. So I created an illustration of the Top Gear studio. And they were really loved this. And so we got talking, and they said, what if we expanded this into a whole book, this whole idea? So after a lot of discussion, logistics, timing, and how much it would cost to do this book, we eventually got the pitch agreed with Top Gear and the publisher, and Where's Stig was born. Now, Where's Stig is basically a spoof of Where's Wally with the Top Gear's tame racing driver, the Stig. And it's based on some of the stunts they've done in the show, their adventures, where they've driven across the deep south of America and got chased by rednecks, or when they drove to the North Pole in a Toyota Hilux, or they sailed their cars across the English Channel, or their Botswana African adventure. So, I had to watch an awful lot of repeats of Top Gear and do a lot of research and get all the jokes in and all the little things that the fans would really love. You might recognize this place. So it's hugely successful, unexpectedly. It became the number 6 in the Christmas book chart. It was the 5th best-selling hardback non-fiction book of 2009. It's a hugely unexpected hit. So inevitably, we did a couple of sequels as well, which had to be bigger and bolder and brasher, I guess. So I was thinking James Cameron directs. So then, everything had to be more, I guess. So I also was refining what I did because, much more structure about doing the second 2 books in the planning process. And I wrote the scripts, but not the words for the book, so I got to basically tell them what I would like to do, and we agreed between us what it would be. And I also got to indulge my love of Formula One as well in the books, which is great. There's British Grand Prix and the Singapore Grand Prix. If anyone wants to commission me to illustrate the Sao Paulo Grand Prix this year, please give me a call. And then that led to doing the first book as an iPhone app, which was really good as well. I mean, never really expected this to have happened. And then we did a range of merchandise as well, so jigsaw puzzles and mugs and other things. So, it's good to build those relationships with clients and keep them informed of what's going on, because you never know how that might build and what opportunities that might lead to. Create a niche. Now, having a niche and working in a niche, can you do something better than everybody else, or very few people can do, then you will never be without work. And one of the things that I do the most... Oh, damn thing is not working. Sorry, this clicker isn't working. Is maps. And sorry, get my train of thought back. So I do, and these are quite detailed and complicated things to do. So I work with Chessington World of Adventures for 5 seasons, working with them. So they're quite complicated, a lot of involvement, a lot of research, and then as well as doing the New York Circle Line cruises around New York, and then advertising maps as well, and then resort maps for Blackpool, the big resort in the UK, campus maps for universities, but a little more in depth about how I create one of these things. So sometimes, they are very involved. And I worked with Wyden and Kennedy in India on a campaign which for the Bharatiya City development, a $500 million residential and business development outside Bangalore. And they wanted to create this sort of fun, welcoming, warm, pixel art city to promote it. So this place didn't exist. So I was sent a huge amount of reference material. So flat plans of the whole development, CAD drawings, Google SketchUp, artist visualizations, 3D massing drawings of all the buildings. It's just an overwhelming amount of information I had to distill. But looking at one small section of these three residential towers. So they sent me the architectural drawings, and then these massing drawings, and then the overhead plan, and as well as the visualizations of how each of these buildings were going to be built. And then from that, I started working up an overall composition for the map, and then finished that. And then that one small section then became this. So you see there's an awful lot of involvement with it. And then that whole map became this huge, crazy cityscape. And obviously each area had their own flavor. They wanted to show this to be fun, show all the things that were part of the community. So like the sports facilities, the parks, the shopping, and the business areas. I mean, it was all very involved. And to go with after that, it's kind of like, how do people find you to commission you? And if nobody sees your work, you won't get commissioned. So you have to get out there. You have to promote. And that doesn't necessarily come very natural to some of us. Talking about our work, getting in people's faces, but you have to do it. And these days, the first port of call for most commissioners will probably be the internet. So you need to harness the power of the internet, which means, kick-ass website, something really clear and concise and that clients can get to within one click. You've got to keep them on your website. If it's difficult, they'll leave, and you can't really just use a blog that people have to scroll down through. You need something really to the point. And then I also go on things like Behance, which I highly recommend to any creative here. I get a lot of inquiries from it. And Dribble, which is show and tell for designers. Portfolio sites like the Association of Illustrators Portfolios and Hire an Illustrator in the UK. My work goes on Flickr, which is great for getting your work found in Google Images, because it's such a huge site, and if you're descriptive, your work can come up in Google Images. I use social media a lot, like Twitter, which is great for getting news out there. All my video work goes on Vimeo. And I'm a convert to Instagram, which is, I was skeptical to start with, but it's found to be a very powerful tool. And then I do a lot of interviews. So interviews with podcast sites, Arrest All Mimics in the UK recently, and other sort of interviews about my working process and business side, like Red Lemon Club. But I'm still a great believer in the power of print. And every 18 months, I try to do a whole promotional book. Basically, a book, a whole portfolio of my work in one hit. And this is the most recent one I've done. It's just back from the printers a couple of weeks ago. So I have 3,000 of these printed that go to clients all over the world. And and I give a selection of work from the last 18 months. So it's pretty up to date. Try to show different aspects of my work. That's what 3,000 books looks like when they come back from the printer, about 20 boxes. And then you've got the boring task of stuffing envelopes with books and labeling them with addresses. So this takes me quite a while to get out. But it works. And one job can pay for the whole thing. And you can reach clients that you may not reach just purely by being on the internet. But also in this day and age, you can think global, because the internet does mean you can get your work seen across the world. And so whether that's working with BBDO in Australia on animated banner campaigns for white pages, or Christmas campaign with Publicis for Intermarché in France, or ad campaign again with Publicis in Ireland for an insurance company, or editorials in Sweden and Germany, and even working with Hollywood to promote Jack Black's recent movie Goosebumps, which was a great project to work on. It was really fun and great to work on such a high-profile project with a great client. So it's this big interactive game. We went viral. But one of the big jobs I've been doing the last few years is working with Wieden & Kennedy in India on the launch of the Multics utility vehicle, a vehicle specifically designed for the Indian market. And the interesting thing about this project is it was totally illustrated, not one piece of photography, which is kind of unusual, because you're showing a product and you've got the product, only a drawing of the product. So well, why choose an illustrator in the UK rather than hire an illustrator in India? Maybe there's a certain aesthetic, a certain professionalism, a certain way of thinking. There may be a certain reliability of delivering a very complicated project in a short amount of time. So I created this whole huge world showing all the different aspects of how people might use this in their daily lives and business. So everything started with a penciled line drawing, of course. And then, we used different aspects. So, whether it be using it for wedding cars or deliveries and small businesses. So it was aimed towards people who may be semi-literate. So it has to be open and not too over people, too highbrow and over people's heads. So, it's just all the different aspects of how this vehicle might be used in somebody's business in the rural communities or in cities. It's also got a power takeoff, so we can power water pumps and generators, which would be quite important in a country which could have intermittent electricity. And then also to do quite a lot of technical type illustrations of the vehicle as well, and even exploded cutaways of it. So there's a huge amount of different strands to this job. And then there was a big launch for the vehicle. The illustration involved on the stage set, and there was used on all the marketing collateral, print campaign and newspapers and billboards, the website. And then in the last few weeks we also launched a follow-up to the campaign of testimonials about owners of the vehicle and how they've used it in their lives. So all these different people have explained how it's changed their lives and improve their business, improve their family life. But here's a short film about the Multics.
This is the man, the businessman. Every day, 57 million men just like him power the world's fastest growing economy. He has many faces, many lives, many roles. But every new role demands a new kind of vehicle. From family to business, village to city, comfort to safety. How many machines does a man really need? What he wants is a one-vehicle solution for all his roles. Enter Eicher Motors, India's leading truck manufacturer, and Polaris, the world's #1 maker of all-terrain vehicles. Together, Eicher Polaris brought muscle and might to make a machine as adaptable as the man. A machine like no other, an original invention, built ground up. This is Multics. It seats a family of 5 and makes space to carry the tools of your business. With the Export, it makes electricity to power whatever you want. The true 3-in-1, a multi-role vehicle for multi-role people. It's a car, it's a pickup van, it's a generator, it's a powerhouse, it's a lifesaver, it's a game changer. Welcome to the world of Multics.
It's great to see my work animated. It's even greater, I just pass it to somebody else and it comes back animated and I don't have to do that part. So it's great to work on such a high-profile campaign for the launch of a vehicle that challenged me in lots of ways, and being the face of that campaign with my work. Never work for free. Even today, I occasionally get people come to me, hey, we've got this great project for you, but we haven't got a budget, or we can't pay you. And, I'm a busy person. I don't have time to work on free projects. Would you go to a builder to ask them to come and work on your house for free and say, hey, do this building work for me, it would be great for your portfolio? No, he'll laugh at you, if not worse. So you know all this already, I'm sure. So you should never work for free and show me the money. That's really what it's about. And, and I just think if everybody else is being paid, then I need to be paid too. So you should never work for free. Oh, except when you're asked to draw a sex theme park. This is probably one of the weirdest jobs I have ever done. But I draw a distinction here between working for free and pro bono. Pro bono comes from the Latin, for the public good. And I am donating my time and my fee for a good public cause for the betterment of society. Uh, the next section is not safe for work, so if you're offended by sex and jiggly bits and that sort of thing, look away. Still here? Okay. AIDS, the French not-for-profit HIV/AIDS awareness organization, are known for their very provocative campaigns. And, you know, they don't believe in holding back on what they do. You know, they don't, something so important, they don't believe you've got to get in people's faces. So they've done these quite provocative campaigns. You know, won lots of awards, and they've got lots of press. They also did an amazing campaign with the American illustrator James Jean. So they approached me and said, we'd love you to draw the world of sex for us as part of this campaign. And I was just coming off the back of doing one of my Where's Stig's books. I was very tired and saying, like, do I really want to work on a project for nothing for the next month? And they said, like, don't make a decision now. We want to send you a book, a package to convince you and show you what we're really about. So they sent me this book, which arrived in a huge condom wrapper. So I tore it open inside this book. The world of sex is a theme park. The rides are sex-themed, and everywhere people are having sex. On the sidewalks, in bushes, on rides, in the ticket booths, everywhere. Its motto, the safer you play, the longer you stay. Just as Disneyland has an illustrated map, so does the world of sex. This is where you come in. We need a world-class artist to help bring this map to life. We came to you because your wit and style are crucial to this being successful. We need your help. This is a not-for-profit project in which no money has been exchanged. We are working for free. We hope we can persuade you to do the same. We can assure you this process will be fun, interesting, and creatively rewarding. Okay, I'll do it. And as I said, this then became one of the strangest projects I've ever worked on. So they sent me a brief with a list of potential rides, and they said, we want your ideas too. So then I sent back a whole list of other stuff. And I think I bring a sort of British humor and wit to this, so they might have not have thought of. So this was the original rough that I did. And once that was signed off, it became this rather explicit world of sex. And obviously, it was printed properly as a theme park map and all the rides. And this was given out at the Museum of Sex in New York, as well as gay and lesbian clubs and other places as well. And then it was also used as a print campaign in publications as well. So I want to talk to you about some of my favorite rides. The mine shaft. Feeling dirty, plow your train into the mud hole of the mine shaft. The muff dive. Take the plunge. The magical muff provides a wet, soft, and satisfying landing. Watch out, sailor. The pirates on this ship won't hesitate to board your vessel. The fuck wheel. Tuck yourself in for a wild ride. A trip around the fuck wheel will have you coming full circle. The island of Lesbos. Come ashore. Buried pleasure and hairy boxes of treasure await you on the Isle of Lesbos. The Gimp House. Submit yourself to a session of excruciating pleasure with these nocturnal lovers of latex. The Penis Flume. Strap yourself into the cockpit of the penis flume and explore the world of sex from a dick's eye view. And of course, you need to end with the money shot. These shooters are pump action only. See how fast you can unload your targets at the money shot. So yes, it was a very strange project, which went on to win quite a lot of awards, a Clio Award, Advertising Award, and a One Show Award. And at the end of it, this turned up online.
Ladies and gentlemen, gentle ladies and lady gentlemen, welcome to the world of sex, a place of fun, fantasy, and adventure. Bring a friend, meet a stranger, or get together with a group. There is always something new to explore and someone fun to do. But remember to always use a condom, because the world of sex is full of both pleasure and risk. The safer you play, the longer you stay.
So it's great to see my design turn into something like that. And the last project I want to talk about, have fun. It's not all about the money. We didn't get into this probably to be a millionaire. I mean, it's unlikely we're going to make our fortunes from being an illustrator. So, we got in this to have fun. And we have to remember that. And sometimes you need to do things just for the hell of it, because you want to. So, my friends at Outline Editions, which are a art print company, they were collaborating with Transport for London on the Year of the Bus celebrations. And they asked me to get involved with this project. And I wasn't being paid, but I was going to be given items in return for doing this. So if you've been to London, you'll know that to get around London, you need to use electronic payment system cards called the Oyster. And what you need to keep that safe and not broken is an attractive wallet to keep it in. But these can be canvases for art. So I had a long deadline on this, and invariably you put it off, and you put it off, and then they say, where's the artwork? Where is it coming? And I wasn't happy with the ideas I came up with. So I decided to scrap everything and start again. So I was looking back at reference for the bus system and everything. I was looking at the bus map. And I saw it almost looks like it's spelling the word bus. So, that doesn't work. So in the bus, it looks like there's a B and a U and a backwards S. And that's all and it came to me. I wanted to spell London takes the bus in the route lines of the bus map. So that was the initial drawing. So I had to use the visual language of the bus map, and I had to get the balance right between it being too obvious and not being obvious enough. Oh, this thing is not working. Excuse me. And that was the final finished printed Oyster card holder. And then off the back of that, we also did a limited edition print, which was going to be sold in the London Transport Museum and on the London Transport websites. I did a big launch for my print, and then some of the other artists who are taking part as well at the London Transport Museum. And then they came to me and said, London Transport are also doing this bus sculpture trail. So there's going to be 50 buses, all painted, illustrated, designed, placed at various points across London, and people will go from bus to bus trying to find each bus and check them off a list. So they said, we want you to propose your design as well for this bus. So and these were going to be 2 meters long, and based on the new bus for London, more commonly known as the Boris bus, after their former mayor. And so this is what I was given to work with, trying to work out how I was going to fit my design to be put onto this bus. So then we came up with this whole flat plan, and I had to work out all the tolerances so things didn't get cut off the edge of the bus. And it was going to be such a complicated design, we decided it was best to do it as a vinyl wrap. And I had a really great company in London who did this for us. And then there was a huge launch in Trafalgar Square for the project. And they showed 30 buses, and mine was one of them. And if you'd told me that one day my artwork would be on display in Trafalgar Square, even if it was only for a day, I probably never believed you. So it's great, seeing my bus by Nelson's column. It was quite bizarre. And then from there it went to its final resting place in the heart of government on Victoria Street. I was there for like 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And then at the end of this, it then went to, with all the other buses outside the Olympic Stadium, where they were on display for another 6 weeks before they all went to auction to raise money for good causes. And in total, the auction raised over £100,000 for the charities, which is an amazing result. And it was great to be involved with such a great project. It's quite a privilege, really. So, and finally, just one more thing to say. Think big, because everybody else thinks small. And what I mean by that is, if you want to work for great clients, go for it. Track them down. If you want to do this, you really have to put your effort into it. Reach further than your grasp, and you might just achieve it. And even if you come halfway, you'll still have achieved much more maybe than you could ever possibly imagined. So, thank you very much, Campus Party. Obrigado. Did anybody have any questions? 1 minute. Don't need it. Microphone for the audience. Okay. Okay. Only have time for one question. So, our friend in the front.
Hey Rod,
Hi.
first of all, I want to congratulate you for amazing work. I have lived in London.
Sorry, can you turn his mic up a bit? I can't hear him.
Okay, now it's fine or still bad?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's do
Okay.
it. First of all, I want to congratulate you for great work. I have lived in London, so I have checked your work you did for Financial Times. My stepfather is British, and I want to ask you, what's your biggest...
I can't hear.
Mais perto?
Is it possible to have more volume on the audience mic?
Now
better.
it's better. So I want to ask you, what's your big references in the illustration and design area? I have seen that you made a word for Top Gear, that you get inspired in Where's Wally from Martin Handford. And I think he's one of the first designers who illustrated in perspective. And can you tell me some other designers that being a reference from you?
Other designers. I mean, comics has always been a big influence on me. So you might know, I don't know if you know Judge Dredd in the UK in 2000 AD. So comics is a huge influence for me and those comic artists. And also the American painter, Edward Hopper, a big influence on my work. And, you know, so it's all sorts of amazing people out there who, from the history of illustration, more so than today, you know, architectural drawings, you know, isometric drawings of New York, all those sort of things, or infographic-y things. So, you know, it's kind of, all those things have really had a bearing on how my work has progressed over the years. So it's great. I think we're out of time, I'm afraid to say. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Ô! Quem gosta de brinde?